Hi, welcome to J Stern Designs. I have been spending a lot of time in my sewing room working on Christmas gifts this season, and my cutting mat is really pretty sad looking. It has a lot of fleece and knit fabric that's been embedded into the cutting mat when I use my rotary cutter to cut out various projects, and I really made a big mess. So I want to give you some tips on how to clean your cutting mat so it'll be ready to go for your next project. So what you're going to need is some good old-fashioned baking soda and a damp sponge. I want to say one thing about baking soda. The reason why I like to use baking soda instead of other cleaning products when I'm working on cleaning my cutting mat is because if I don't rinse off every tiny bit of the baking soda, it's not going to hurt my fabric. If I use a bleach cleaner or something with harsh chemicals and I don't rinse it all off my cutting mat, then it can rub into the fabric I'm using for my next project and damage the fabric or stain the fabric. The baking soda also acts like a fine grit sandpaper, and that's what helps get the fibers out of the grooves that are made by the rotary cutter when it's cutting. All right, so let me show you what my cutting mat looks like, and let me show you how to clean it. And then afterward, I'll give you some tips on how to care for your cutting mat. As you can see, I've got a lot of fibers trapped in my cutting mat. And what I'm going to do to get rid of it is I'm going to take a little bit of this baking soda and I'm just going to sprinkle it on the cutting mat. You can also sprinkle it on your sponge if you'd like. Now I'm just going to gently rub it along the direction of the cut. And it's going to help get the fibers out of the groove, the mini groove that was caused by the cutting mat. So I'm just going to gently rub back and forth like this. Okay, and in the middle I have some going in both directions, so I'll do a little bit like this, and I'll do a little bit like this. And you can see when I turn the sponge over that all of these fibers are caught on here. The one thing you want to be careful with is not to scrub too hard with the scouring side, because you can also rub the blue lines off your cutting board. So you can also use a wet paper towel. So let me show you that. I can rub along, and I'm just applying a little bit of pressure. And if you go along with the direction of the groove, you'll be able to work out most of the fibers. And you can see that this blue is from the blue fleece I was working with. That's not the blue lines. I should have, if I had planned my Christmas projects, I could have picked a color that wasn't the color of my lines. But if I go on this green, I can show you what I mean. So let me just do a little bit of the green. So you can see that it's picking up the fibers. So you can see that little bit of green in there. All right, so once you've wiped it down pretty well and you've gotten most of the fibers out, you can rinse it with a clean damp paper towel to get the baking soda off. Okay, you can see that my board is in much better shape now that I've cleaned it. And what I want to do to wrap up this quick little demo on how to clean your cutting mat is to give you some tips on caring for your mat. Okay, so as you may have noticed, I was able to get out a lot of the fibers that were hanging along the surface of my cutting mat. But if you're working with one of these white translucent mats, they're pretty soft, and if you use a lot of pressure when you're cutting things out, some of the fibers get embedded so deeply into the cracks, or not cracks, but into the cuts that they're impossible to get out. Okay, so what you can do to keep your cutting mat in good shape is to use a fresh blade. If your blade is fresh and it doesn't have any nicks in it, it's going to be easy to cut out your fabric. And because it's easy to cut out fabric with a nice new sharp blade, you're not going to press down as hard. So if you're not pressing down as hard, you're not making as deep of a cut into your cutting mat as you're cutting your fabric. So change your blade often and also try to use, just the minimal amount of pressure that you need to cut your fabric out. Thank you for watching J Stern Designs, and I'll see you next week.